Zapier is one of the most powerful tools for automating your business. But what exactly is Zapier and how does it work? The average company uses an astounding 254 applications to power their business. That might sound crazy, but just think about all the apps you use. From project management and CRMs to website builders, forms, communication tools, marketing, accounting, you name it. Without these systems talking to one another, this lack of automation can cost businesses hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in lost productivity. So where does Zapier play into all of this? Instead of you being the glue that holds together all of your business applications, constantly running reports, exporting and importing data, and firing off notifications, now Zapier connects your systems together, letting them talk to one another, and all without needing to know how to code. Before we get into building our first Zap together, there's a couple of terms you should know. Every Zap consists of a trigger and one or more actions. We can always start with a single trigger. This trigger tells our Zap when to start doing something, and the action is what our Zap actually does as a result. When we pair together a trigger with one or more actions, we call this a Zap. You might also think of this as an automation or a workflow. Hi, I'm Dan Lehman from AutomationHelpers.com, and we help businesses like yours get automated and integrated with your business applications. Now, this tutorial's a little bit longer in nature, so we've included timestamps down below if you want to skip to the sections that are most relevant to you. Now it's time to build our first Zap together. So when you log in, you see this dashboard, it says create a Zap. And one of the really cool things about Zapier is you can create as many Zaps, as many different automations as you want, and they're not going to charge you for that. You get charged on the execution of those Zaps instead of the Zaps themselves. So one of the things that happens is I really encourage experimenting a lot and creating lots of different Zaps. And so in order to do that, I'd really recommend creating a folder structure for yourself. So if you click on Zaps down here, you could create these different folders and store all of your Zaps in those folders. And we're going to give them good titles so that we don't lose track of everything that we're doing. So I'll click into my demo examples folder for this video, and let's go ahead and create a new Zap here. Now let's talk about our use case for this Zap. So I might be using different applications than you. There are free plans for all of these tools, so you can follow along exactly with what I'm doing, or you can just watch and then apply that to a Zap that you're going to be creating. But our use case is that we work in marketing and we have some videos that we need to create for our team. So we've created a Google form for them, really simple. We're just capturing what's the topic of the video, when do you need this video to be published by, and then from there, we want to help create a creative brief or an outline of what's going to happen for that video. And then we want to have the system notify us to let us know, hey, you've got a new video waiting for you that you need to create. Now, when you get started, you can certainly add your own triggers. And this is what people always did for a very long time. You'd be searching for the application that's triggering this, which would be anytime there's a new submission to Google Forms, we're going to kick that off. But you see there's this new feature that's in beta that we can actually use AI to help generate our Zap for us. And this is really powerful, especially if you have relatively simplistic Zaps that you're creating. So let's give this a try. We'll say when a Google Form submission is received, then we're going to send some of that information to OpenAI. Then we're going to create a Google document with that outline that we get from OpenAI. And then finally, we're going to send a notification in Slack. Let's see what it comes up with. Now look at how cool this is. It came up with all of our steps. Here is our trigger that we have. There's a new form response. And then we have 3 follow-up actions. We're sending that prompt to OpenAI. We're creating a document in Google Docs, and then we're sending a Slack notification. So let's click on try it. Now I'd love to say that that's all you have to do. Go ahead and publish it and it's good to go. But we know that automation can be a little bit finicky. So we're going to go through this and make sure that each step is configured in the way it needs to be in order for this to work. So let's start by clicking on our trigger about this Google Form submission. And one of the things that you'll need to do is add your account. This is going to walk you through the process of connecting to your application. So it's going to look something like this. If I go ahead and reconnect it, it's going to bring you to a prompt to authenticate, to give it the permissions it needs. And you have to be able to grant that in order for it to interact with the accounts that you have. And you'll find that this is a step that you need to do for most of the applications that you're interacting with because they're behind logins. Once you've authenticated and you can see your account there, then we're going to go down to the trigger itself. And here's where we need to choose the specific form because you might have created several different forms already. I'll click on the form and we can search for it in the search box. In this case, I can see that I've got this video content creation one, so we're going to select that. And then here's where we're going to test that step. This is an important part of any automation step that we want to make sure that we have test records to work with and that this is working properly before we go on to our next step. So I'm going to click to test the trigger here, and we can see that we have a form response. I put in Zapier tutorial because that's what we're doing. So we'll see how this outline looks. We've got that information that we need. There could be multiple records, and so you could tell it which record you want to choose from. But we're going to go ahead and continue with that selected record. Now we want to take what we did in the Google Form submission step and send it to OpenAI. So here we are going to configure this next step. We're going to send a prompt. We'll click continue. And again, you'll need to set up your own account. So this is going to ask for an API key that you can utilize for it. We'll go ahead and click continue. And then we can scroll down. We're going to use GPT 3.5 down here. And we need to add a prompt. This is kind of the most important part that we need to get right. So I've created a prompt already. I'm saying, hey, your goal is to help outline this video topic that we have. And we want you to create an outline format for us. We want to keep it nice and short and tight. We don't want it to expound as ChatGPT oftentimes does. So notice the last thing I'm doing here is saying the topic for this video is, because here is the beauty of Zapier and automation. We don't want to have to type in the topic for this video is Zapier tutorial, and then every time it relies on us to type in Airtable tutorial or whatever is next. This is where we want to use data dynamically from our previous steps. This is the whole beauty of automation here. So what we can do is, if we click on it, you can see that there's this insert data, and this allows us to grab information from any of our previous steps. So I can search here. I know that I called this topic. So we can see here's the question. What is the topic of this video? Zapier tutorial. And I can click on that and it's going to insert this. So it's not going to actually have the question here. It's not going to say, what is the topic of this video in the prompt that we're creating? It's only going to take the value of it, which in this case was Zapier tutorial when we submitted that form. So now we can X out of here and we could adjust different things. If you're familiar with how GPTs work, you can adjust all of these settings, but we're just going to take it as is for now. We'll press continue. And you can see down below that it's generated this prompt accurately because we have the text that we gave it, and then it's inserted that Zapier tutorial text as well. So let's go ahead and test this step. And you can see this actually sent it to OpenAI and it's come back with our response here. So in the response, you can see it's built a nice outline for us. Now, of course, we'll probably want to tweak this ourselves, but OpenAI helps give us a leg up here. That looks good to me. So let's go ahead and continue. Now we can choose our action for our Google Doc. There's a couple cool options, like we could create a document from a template, but we're just going to go ahead and create this from text. Again, click continue. You'll have to make sure that you're authenticated with your Google Docs account. Press continue again. And then here's where we can set up our action. So our document name, another perfect way that we can use that data dynamically. So let's go ahead and call this maybe the topic of our video. So again, we can search for this. I'll search for topic. So we'll call it Zapier tutorial. And then we can also add in static text. So maybe we want to add a hyphen, and then we're going to call this outline, Zapier tutorial outline. If we wanted to, we could include additional information, like maybe we want to put in the publish date. So I'll go ahead and search for publish. When will the video be published? We could inject that as well. So you can have multiple pieces of data inserted into this text without any additional effort. And we'll X out of here. Our document content itself, we probably want to let the user know when the publish date is. Maybe they don't see it in the title. So let's first add our publish date. And again, we will insert that data from our publish date. Now I'll put in a couple line breaks and let's put in the outline that we've now generated. So this is going to be called from OpenAI the response. You can see that we've got, here's the introduction and all that information. So we'll inject our response from OpenAI and we can choose the folder that this goes to as well. So do we just want it at the base, the root of our Google Docs? In this case, probably not. I'm going to click on my folder and we've got a demo folder for now. Now we can test this step. And if I go into my Google Drive, I can see it's actually created that document for us in the test. I can open this up and see all the information about our outline. And then our last step is to send our Slack notification. So we'll continue here. Let's set up our action. I'm going to choose just a demo channel, but maybe we have one called video creation or something like that. That would be a little bit more relevant. Here's where we can put in our message text. We have our video topic up here, but let's actually add the link to the Google Doc itself. So I'm going to search for link. There's a lot of different options to choose from. I'll use this alternate link, and then we should be good to go for our Slack message. You could add your own icons, and there's additional Slack settings if you want to dig into that as well. Let's go ahead and press continue, and we'll test this step. And now we can see that we've received a notification in the channel that we specified in Slack, and we can actually open up the hyperlink that we get to show the outline that we have so far. Now I'm going to retitle this because I don't love the automated name up here. So we'll call this video outline process. And then we're ready to go and publish our Zap and turn this on so it's available and ready to go. Now we're live in production and we can submit the form for ourselves. We've got ClickUp tutorial this time, and we've got a date that we want this for. We can submit it. And then in the background, our Zap is running. And then without any interaction on our part, it automatically has created our Slack notification and the new outline that we have for a ClickUp tutorial. Congratulations, you have finished your first Zap. Now we're gonna go ahead and talk about some other advanced features that you can use within your Zaps, as well as what's coming down the pipe from what Zapier is building. But before we do all that, I think it's important to talk about pricing, just so you're not caught unaware about how Zapier is charging you based on your Zaps. When it comes to Zapier's pricing, there's a couple different things that you need to think about. For one, we're not talking about the tables and interfaces pricing. We'll cover those topics later in the video. We're mostly focused on just the Zaps right now. So overall, this is consumption based. The more executions of your Zaps and the individual actions within them is going to cost you more. Now, additionally, there's different plans below that offer different features. So there's a free plan, starter, professional, and team, and then there's a company or enterprise plan here. And so depending on that, you might have 2,000 tasks and get charged two different amounts depending on if you're looking for the additional features that team allows versus what you're getting with professional. Now, to be honest, if you're serious about automating your business, you're not going to be able to stick on the free plan for very long. One of the important reasons for this is that you're only limited to two-step Zaps. Two-step Zap is more simple than the one we just did in the previous example. Now, that Zap you could complete if you were on a free trial for one of the paid plans, but this two-step Zap only consists of that trigger and a single action. So in our case, we had 3 actions. Let's take a look at that again, where we had the trigger and then we had 3 follow-up actions to that. So if you were on the free plan, you could only do a trigger and then you could send a Slack notification and we wouldn't create that Google document at all. So it's pretty restrictive when it comes to how you're planning and architecting your Zaps. So you can think of the math like this. Let's say you selected the professional plan, $49 a month, and it's going to be for those 2,000 tasks. Now that first Zap that we created together consumes 3 tasks every single time it runs. Well, that $49 divided by 2,000 tasks is going to be 2.45 cents a task. And then the cost of running that Zap with 3 of those tasks each time is going to be 7.35 cents. Now, some of you might be overjoyed. This is literally costing me cents. Let's automate everything. But you can imagine as you do this at scale, those cents add up. It's going to cost you more the more that you invest into automation. And so that leads people to ask the question, is Zapier the best choice for my business? So how is Zapier positioned in the marketplace and how does it stack up against its competitors? Zapier by far has the largest market share. Even people who aren't very technical, they'll probably have heard of Zapier in some regards. Now, in addition to this, they're doing a lot with innovation. They've created Canvas, tables, interfaces. They're doing a lot with OpenAI. So you can see that there's a huge investment in their product. They also have the greatest selection of different applications that they connect to. Now, this is a little bit of a marketing thing because in reality, it doesn't matter if 6,000 or more different applications connect to Zapier because you're only using a small fraction of them. What's most important is that the applications that you're using work with whatever automation platform you're using. But still, it's helpful to have an application like Zapier that invests so much in connecting to this huge ecosystem of applications. Zapier is also the easiest for clients to use and maintain themselves. So you might work with an automation agency like ours as you're building and getting set up, But if you want to make tweaks, you don't have to be dependent on someone else. You can make all those changes and maintain them yourself. On the cons side, Zapier is definitely the most expensive automation tool that we work with on a regular basis. So if you're concerned about costs, you might want to take a look at some of the other tools that are out there. It's also not quite as useful for more complex automations. If you're trying to configure a lot of complex Zap, you might have more luck using a different tool. Next up, we have Relay. Like Zapier, it's very easy to use. They're investing a ton in their AI features. And one advantage they have over Zapier is definitely around the pricing model. I think you'll find it a lot more attractive. On the con side, they're newer to market, and so they're not quite as able to handle some of the more complex automations that you might need. Make is definitely the tool that gets compared to Zapier the most. So you might have heard of them as Integromat in the past. So on the pros side, you can build much more complex automations than Zapier in still a pretty easy to use interface. It's generally much more affordable than Zapier based on their pricing model, and they have a more generous free plan. So we work with a number of clients who can just stay on their free plan. They don't even need to upgrade to a paid plan. On the cons, it is a steeper learning curve. I definitely think if you pair the two together and you ask someone, hey, which platform's easier for you to get started with? I think you're gonna find that Zapier is easier for more people. And if you're looking for the most complex automations and maybe need some code in there, it's really not that great of a tool for coding automations. There's better options out there. And the final two that we're kind of pairing together are Pipedream and N8N. On the pro side, anytime that you want to run code like Python or JavaScript, these two are going to be the best options for you. They'll also save a ton of money on the operational cost side, and you can probably get these at the cheapest. And for N8N, they're also open source. So if you want to self-host, that's an option that you can do with them. On the con side, both of these applications are far more technical than the other options that we've talked about. So this is really catering to a different audience. If you've got technical resources on your team, then these are both great options. So hopefully you can see that Zapier is this very easy to use platform positioned for beginners, really easy for people to be able to maintain on their own, and they're investing a lot in new innovation. Next, let's take a look at some of my favorite triggers that you can use to do some more advanced things inside of Zapier. So what are you going to do if you're looking for a trigger, but you can't find it for the application that you need? Or maybe you have an application and you want to just be able to click a button and have that trigger a new Zap. Both of those are perfect use cases for webhooks. Now, webhooks are a little bit more advanced of a concept, so it's okay if you don't get it all right away, but it's basically the idea that we're going to send some information from another application and we're going to send it via the URL. We're going to have a special URL that Zapier gives us, and we can add on some additional information that we want to send it to, and then ta-da, it kicks off our Zap. So in this case, my trigger is a webhook by Zapier, and we're going to use just a catch hook here. We'll go ahead and say continue. And let's check out the test area where this gives us the actual URL that we need to copy. So I'll copy this. And for this example, I'm going to use an Airtable interface where I have a button where we want to contact a client. So this will be our example, but this would work if you have your own custom built application or anywhere that offers a button, or even just opening the URL itself. So Airtable has a special formula field, and I'm just pasting in what we just copied of our webhook, and we've got it up until this point. But what I want to do is we want to send it the email address of the person or of the account that we click that button on. So we're using a little bit of fancy logic to concatenate or to combine an email address. And with our URLs, we have something called URL parameters, which is to say we can have this question mark and have some query parameters. In this case, we're sending along the email address, and we're setting that email address equal to a certain value that we have. So if I save this, this is what this is going to look like. So now instead of just the webhook itself, take a look at these URLs. I've got the full URL, which stays the same for all of these records. And then we have question mark email equals, and then for all of these different people, it has their email address. So now I have this button, and I'm going to say, hey, let's actually have it open up that link from that Zapier webhook that we have. And now we can click our button to contact the client. Now back inside of Zapier, if we test this trigger, it's going to listen for that event that we just triggered. And here's the really cool part. It's sent along that email address for us, that rose@example.com. Now, I know that this is more advanced of a concept, and we'll have a separate video where we dig more into this. So if this went by too quickly, don't worry about it. But just know, anytime that you need your own special trigger, or you want to be able to integrate with some application that doesn't have that trigger available, or you want to have a button, These are all great use cases that you can have for webhooks. Because then we could click on our action and maybe we want to fire off an email. So we choose email by Zapier and we're going to send an outbound email. And here in our action, here's where we can use that data, that rows@example.com, from the query string that we just sent. Now, if you don't want to use a webhook, you could also have an incoming email trigger your automation as well. And we can parse the details of that email to be able to send on to our follow-up actions. So in this case, I'm using the email parser by Zapier, and we've got it for a new incoming email. And what this does is it creates a special email inbox that we can have. So think about all the different applications that you work with, and even if they don't have an API or a trigger that you can use, chances are they're sending you some kind of email notifications. Oh, you have a new invoice, email notification. Oh, you added a new customer, email notification. So if you can take those email notifications and set up an auto forwarder in your email to send it to this custom email address you set up, then we're going to be able to use that to trigger our actions. And then the email parser itself, if we have some kind of structured data, we can actually tag the different attributes of this. So we can say, here's the name of this request, here's the priority, here's the date. If you want to see more information about this, we have a special video dedicated to the email parser, but it's pretty cool how you can take any kind of data out of an email and use that to trigger your Zap. Once you set up that parser, you'll be able to use those values in your follow-up actions as well. And the last trigger I want to talk about, this one's super easy. Imagine you want to do something at the same time every single day. Like maybe in the morning, you want to gather some news and send it to yourself. Or at the end of the day, you need to collate some timesheets and send those to yourself. Any Zap that you have that you want to do at the same time every day or the same date is going to be perfect for the schedule tool. Within the configuration settings, you can say, hey, I want to do this every day, every hour, every month, every week. If we choose every day, we can go a step further and say, hey, we want to do this at a certain time every single day and be able to do this on repeat. In addition to those triggers that Zapier has created, they've also created several helpful actions. One of the cool parts about many of the actions that Zapier has created is that you'll see this little tag that says free. What this means is that if you're filtering something or formatting something, it's not going to count as a task, so you're not going to be charged for that. Think of these as utilities that make your life easier as you're actually creating your Zaps. So one that's really helpful is Filter by Zapier. And as you can imagine, if you have lots of Zaps that are processing, let's say you have leads that are coming in from your website. Well, is every lead that you have qualified? No, probably not. And so you want a way to filter out the leads that you don't want to process, because if it's just a junk lead, we don't want to get that Slack notification. Or if it's a partner request, we want that to go someplace else in the system. So a filter is just kind of a gate that says, hey, if it matches this condition, go ahead and process the rest of the Zap. If not, then we're going to stop. So in this case, we can choose the field that we have from our trigger, and we're going to look at the lead type in this case. So the new value of that lead type is partner. And in this case, we're going to say, okay, if it contains, in this case, we'll say we want it to be a marketing qualified lead. So if we had tagged it as a marketing qualified lead, we're good to go. So now when we test this out and we press continue, we can see that it's very specific. It's not that our data isn't functioning, it's that we didn't match the criteria in order to process this. So if we had a step for our marketing qualified leads that we wanted to do after this, like a notification, then this would have not continued because it didn't match that criteria. But let's take this a step further. Maybe when those contacts come in from our website, we want to do something with them if they're a marketing qualified lead or if they're a new partner. In this case, we're kind of splitting our logic. We're saying, okay, well, based on what we want them to do, we want them to take one of multiple paths. That's the exact reason that we have paths by Zapier. So now in this first path, we could have what we just had with the filter before. We could say, hey, if that lead type contains MQL, here's the one path we want to send you down. And like before, we don't pass that. We're not actually going down that path. But in our path B, we're saying, well, if it matches with partner, then we want to go down this other direction. If we press continue, here's where we're going to have success. This is where we would continue down. So maybe if it comes down to a partner, we're going to log them to HubSpot or Salesforce or something else so that we can follow up with the partner appropriately. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the data that we receive isn't really usable in the way we want it to be, which means we have to format that data so we can present it the way we want it to appear. That's where the formatter comes into play. So we can click on that and we can choose an event. Are we working with dates and times? Numbers, maybe things like currencies. We've got text and different utilities. So this again is just to help that data function in the way we want it to. Let's take a look and see what we can do with numbers. If we press continue, we can see we have all of these different options. You can think of this essentially like formulas, and we're reformatting that data. Honestly, the one that we use the most is probably around date and time, because we get it from one system and it's presented one way. And then when we're creating a task in another system, then we need it to be able to match up with whatever that secondary system is expecting. So we can take a look and we can see that for date and time, we can use this both to add and subtract time. So maybe we get the initial date and we want to add 7 days to that. And then that's the due date for this object. So we could say add and subtract time. We could use this to compare dates, or we could use one of the many date formatting options. One of the actions that doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves is Code by Zapier. Now, I know this can sound a little bit intimidating, but wait until you check out its AI features. So here I'm inputting a list of email addresses. These are different sales reps that we have in the system. And then we also have the lead count that we captured for each of them, how many leads they currently have. And we're doing a round robin lead assignment. And then here I can just click generate with AI. So I'm just going to give it some instructions using plain English. Find that sales rep with the fewest number of leads and return the email address of that sales rep. Let's click to generate our code, and you can see it's created a bunch of code for us with comments, and we can review our input data here. And then if we look at our output data, let's test out our code. And you can see it returned the sales rep as well as the lead count. So it's a little bit off here. Maybe we want to make a quick adjustment and say, just return the email address. And let's see if that makes a change for us. Let's run that code again. And now we have the answer that we're looking for. It returns just that sales rep's email address. For those of you who have an understanding of code, but maybe aren't programmers yourself, this is a great way to get started if you want to do some more advanced things in Zapier. Now let's take a look at how Zapier is continuing to innovate and some of the new offerings that they have in 2024. Obviously, it's been a huge year for ChatGPT's advancements, and one of the things that you can do is create your own custom GPT inside of ChatGPT, and by doing so, this allows you to call Zapier AI actions. So maybe you're interacting with a chatbot, and then you say, hey, generate a contract or add something to my calendar, and what that allows you to do is then utilize Zapier AI actions so that you can call Zaps directly from inside of your custom GPT. If you're interested in that, we have a video that dives deeper in how you can create your own Zapier AI action and custom GPTs. But Zapier has its own chatbots offering, which is somewhat the inverse of this. They utilize ChatGPT in the background for their bots, but this is something that you can give people access to even if they don't have their own ChatGPT licenses. So inside of Zapier, I'm creating a new chatbot, and this feels very similar if you've worked at all with your own custom GPTs. If I scroll down here, we can give it a directive, and this is where I gave it some directions. If you remember back to our first Zap that we created together, we were trying to get it to generate some information about a video outline. Well, instead, we could do this in chat form if we wanted to. So I've created this bot with a similar kind of purpose here for outlining videos. Then up top, we have our own custom link, which we can share with other people. So in this case, I'm prompted to give a topic of what we want this video to be about. Let me press submit here. And now we're getting some titles back as well as an outline that we can use for our video topic. You'll notice one really cool thing that we've done here, which is we've added our own custom actions. So if I like how this looks and maybe we want to make some changes to it, now I can go ahead and press that button to create a doc. And then inside of my Google Drive, it's automatically created that document for me, so I don't even have to copy and paste anything across. Now, another new tool that Zapier has to offer is called Canvas. This is a process orchestration tool. It's a diagramming tool. We can use it to get our thoughts on paper or on a canvas to be able to document what our automations look like. For example, this process might start in a contact form. If I open this up, we can call out different actors that are a part of this. So in this case, this is the prospect on our website. And so this identifies the different users that need to complete these processes. And then in this case, we have an app used, and this is Interfaces by Zapier. And I'm going to show you in Interfaces how we can build a contact form. Maybe we don't even need to use a third-party form service because we can do that all with an interface. We can click and drag and move this around. You can see here we have a split path. So we're saying, hey, once that lead comes in from a form into our Zapier tables that we have in the background, then we kind of have this decision to make. Are they a lead? In which case, then we want to maybe have a Zap and we log them into Salesforce. Or if they go on the partner side, maybe we just notify the partner manager in Slack. So this finally gives us the functionality that we need to be able to diagram really complex automations so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle of all the Zaps that we might be creating. Now, we talked about interfaces a moment ago, so let's try creating our own. I can click on Create here, and we've got some options. We can either build things like a portal or a form, or there's a huge template library where we can see lots of different examples. And this could be many different things. So we're talking about an example of our contact form, but maybe you have a team that you want to manage approvals on the back end. And so you have expenses come in and they can approve those expenses through an interface. There's really a lot that we can do when we think of all the possibilities of interfaces with tables together. So in this case, let's go ahead and create a form. You can see again, we have lots of different forms to choose from. So let's choose this Get in Touch template to get started. Within this interface, it looks like we actually have two different pages. We have the form itself of Get in Touch, and then we presumably redirect to a thank you page. So let's start by opening up our Get in Touch form. And this is where we can see the template in action. So we're capturing some different information here that we'd expect on a contact form. If I scroll down to the bottom, we can add our own components here. So maybe we want to add some additional text. We've got the form. We could display information from a table. You can see we have Kanbans. So there's lots of different ways that we can configure the look and feel of this. Maybe I want to be able to add my own custom fields to this. So I can just click in here and we can see the existing fields that we have. Really easy to be able to add our own custom fields. And you can see we have several different types to choose from, which correspond to the options that we have in Zapier's tables. Then if we click on the data, we can see it's actually created a new table for us. So anybody who submits their contact information, all of that's going to be logged in the backend in this table. And we can use that to spin off other Zaps and automations that we have. And then from here, we also have our actions. And so when the user submits this form, we're going to navigate to that other thank you page that we have. And we could kick off a new Zap as well. Then when we're ready, we can go ahead and open up this link. And this is what we could link to from our website or social media profiles. Then, as I mentioned, this is connected to a sign up table. So over on the left-hand side, you can click on tables and we can see this new sign up table that was automatically generated on our behalf. So right now you can see that the table is empty of any data, but we have our different fields, our different columns across the top. So from our form or our interface here, we can fill out some information. I can fill in that CAPTCHA and let's go ahead and submit this. Now you can see it's created that record for us automatically in the background without need for a special Zap. You can add your own fields as well. So from here, maybe I want to add a special button and we're going to use this to kick off a sales process. So we could call it sales process. And then for field type, we can search for button. And with that button, we could use that to trigger a Zap, for example. And we could choose from a Zap that we have or make a new one. So in this way, you can kind of have that human in the loop automation. Someone submits that contact information. And then we have a user who might say, I'm going to approve or qualify this, and then kick off that automation via a button click. When it comes to chatbots, interfaces, and tables, the nice part is that you can try all of them and use them even in production for free. There's a free plan available. However, if you want to have some more upgraded features, like you want to have additional access, you want to have more chatbots, you want to have more interfaces, you want to have more rows that you can store in your table, then you're going to want to look to upgrade that. So interfaces, for example, we've got that basic $0, it's free forever. And then we have a premium and an advanced option depending on how many interfaces that we want. And you'll see it also covers additional features like if you want to have your own custom domain, then you have to pay for the more advanced plan. So you can see just how much Zapier is turning into a full-fledged automation platform. Whereas it used to be just about the Zaps, the individual automations you're running, now with chatbots and interfaces and tables, there's so much more that you can do. I hope this has been helpful for you to get a taste of how Zapier works, both as we built our first automation, as we saw some more advanced things that we can do with our Zaps, and to see the direction where Zapier is going. If you need any help in building your Zaps or automating your business, don't hesitate to reach out to our website at automationhelpers.com, where we're offering free 30-minute consultations.